So the second phase of applying innovation on yourself or on a company is the selection phase. So in the first phase you have all these great ideas written out on paper, but now you need to pick one. How are you going to do that? Now that's what is written down in the selection phase and in the slides and in the literature, of course. But we will help you out a bit by giving our example. Because we struggled a lot with the selection phase as well. Because everybody has ideas and everybody wants to act upon those ideas. But to be successful, you actually need to bring focus on the idea that you deem the most successful in. So that might be something like chance times impact. Like what is the biggest chance of success and what is the best value / impact that we can have with it. Because for example, if you have ID number 1, which have a chance of success of 10%, but if the value that's created is 1 million, or well, we want to keep this course up to date, so let's use Bitcoins. The value is 10 Bitcoin. And the other one has a 80% of success, but it won't give you 10 Bitcoin, but it will only give you 0.5 Bitcoin. A short calculation, that one times that one, and that one times that one, sees that this is probably the better version to pick on. That doesn't necessarily mean this is always the better version. It depends on other factors as well. But these types of estimations you need to make for yourself to create a structured way of your ideas. In other words, if you have all your ideas wrote down, you need to gain insight on what am I going to pick. That is subjective. You can do it on either gut feeling or on developments you encounter in your surroundings, or discuss it with other peers, or based on the market needs, or the one that you can actually fund. Because if this is a great idea but nobody wants to fund you, this is not a realistic idea. And of course you will see it in this part as well. Your estimation is often subjective, keep that in mind as well. So the selection phase is an important phase, and in our case, in Koios' case, we had many different challenges already. So currently, for example, we need to think about, are we going to focus on creating a content uploader, so something that you can upload content on your own, or are we going to create a connection tool where you as a student can be connected with the outside world, with field companies, projects and stuff, or are we going to focus on strategic components on how to align better with our stakeholders, like for example onboard other universities. Our resources and your resources are limited. And that's the reason why you need to pick and why you can't do them all. No company in the world can do them all. Everybody has ideas, so you need to make a selection and you need to pick one based on the rank or on the order that you deem wise, the one that you feel comfortable with. Do read up, of course, because you might get some new insight which might shift your rankings, as did with ours rankings. In our case, we often listen to our stakeholders because we think by listening to our stakeholders we made the best selection, and in this case that would be you. That's the reason why we keep harassing you all with feedback and stuff like that, because based on the feedback we pick our next route, our next activities. Because if you select your idea, then you can bring it to the implementation phase, which is the next phase. So once again, read up in the literature. Let me check. Oh yeah, of course, final note, important one is the portfolio management. This can be done either as a company or you as an individual. How would it look like if you are in a company? What do I mean with portfolio management? Pick several ideas. So don't bet all your money on one horse, as they say. Divide or make a selection and say, okay, well, this one is probably the most successful. I'm going to focus on this one, but I'm going to keep some resources on this one as well. Why would you do something? First, ask yourself this. Do I have the abilities? Do I have the means to diverse my focus in several different projects? If you do have the means and if you do have the abilities to focus on multiple things, diversify, because in that case you are betting on multiple horses. This does depend, of course, all about your resources, because if you're alone or if you're in a small team, then focus is the key word. So that depends on the type of company you are. So how would this influence you as an individual? For example, if you are investing in cryptocurrencies or whatsoever, you need to diversify your portfolio as well. You could bet it all on one cryptocurrency, for example, Bitcoin, or you could diversify your portfolio, buy a bit of gold, let it refrain in fiat, or buy a bit of Bitcoin, buy some stocks, buy some shares, etc. It all depends on the means, and eventually it is determined by your end goal. What do you want to reach and how do you want to reach it? Keep in mind, this is personal. Everybody has a different risk approach, risk appetite, but that's outside the scope of this miner as well. So the keynote, the key takeaway here is that you need to select your ID based on your personal preferences, on your framework that you create with fellow people. Literature does help you, does steer you into a certain direction, but we're all human, everybody is different, as you've seen in the very first part of this deep dive, and you will most likely pick a different route for different reasons than your fellow students. So I want to challenge you with this. If you have any ideas, let us know how you select them. What is important for you and why do you pick those ideas? And are those the same reasons as your fellow students? That's one for the further thinking. We will see you in the next phase, the implementing phase.